What's going on?
I'm a little
It's Frank
disappointed.
Starfire,
Nice to meet
and
you.
I'm a simple
Welcome
guy,
back
and
to the
I
world
live
of
my
Frank
life by really
Starfire.
simple means. You know what I
It's
mean?
an amazing
I live by
place.
simple mottos and
Simple,
credos and phrases and
it's a
everything
place
because
where
it works for me. You know what I
wonderful
mean? Lately,
happens.
I've adopted a new one.
Actually,
Thanks, Robot. What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Frank Starfire, and this is the Just to Be Frank
This
podcast.
meeting is being recorded.
Oh, all right. With me today, I have author and I want to say mental health helper, enthusiast, and expert, J. Edward Holt, everybody. So give him a round of applause. I'll add that in post, maybe, if I remember. How you
Okay,
doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Hope you are.
I am. It's interesting. When you reached out, you this is like I think you're the first guest I have that actually reached out to me first, or did I reach out to you?
Uh-huh.
I think you reached out to me.
Yeah, I did. I read out on Wildcast.
Okay, right. Wildcast is a very interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. I like the idea that you can reach out to these people who may or may not know you and know anything about you, but you can have an opportunity to get on a platform and speak and try and, like I say, understand one another in a different way. I think that's interesting, and I think it's a good thing, especially nowadays when everything is so divisive.
Mhm.
You're a writer and you write fantasy. I guess I do fantasy fiction. I guess you'd call it.
Uh-huh.
You got the Barren World Saga, which which admittedly seems kind of dope. I like kind of the setup of that. But you also what is the name of this here? You write for the the
Exceptional needs today.
exceptional needs today. And as I was perusing your
Mhm.
website, it says that you suffered from anxiety and Tourette's and OCD. And I wonder, how does that affect one's daily life? I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody who has Tourette's. I know many people with anxiety.
Mhm.
That's, in this unfortunate, this day and age, anxiety is more prevalent than ever. But Tourette's is something different. I remember seeing, learning about it as a kid, but even then there wasn't much definitive science on it or the idea of it. Can you tell me what that's like?
Yeah, for me, my Tourette's is a relatively mild case. So, it's not like I do these tics uncontrollably 24/7 or anything, but I definitely have bouts with them. They come out at certain times and everything, and um, but most of the time I'm able to kind of contain them. You know, um, in the right situations and everything. But it was especially tough growing up, just learning about that and being a kid with it. And of course, as soon as I was diagnosed with that, I started with anxiety and depression, and then OCD, and all those things made it really hard, just to grow up that way.
Mm. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Carolina.
What part? My daddy was from Charlotte.
Okay, yeah, I'm not far from the Raleigh area.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
I grew up in New York, so
Oh,
different,
okay.
a vast difference in everything, and but that's one thing I try and explain to people. You have to step out of your comfort zone, get off your block, get out of your neighborhood, go visit somewhere else, see how other
Yeah,
people,
absolutely.
see how other people live and breathe.
Mhm.
um i i I don't know how bullying is, well, it was for you. I know, I'll be 40 in August, so bullying for me was a very vastly different than what kids are going through nowadays. When we were bullied back then, it had lasted for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, or you got picked on and somebody else did something stupid in school or what have you, and they were the ones that picked
Yeah.
for a week or two, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know what was your experience like, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I always had friends that were, sticking with me most of the time. So, I didn't have a lot of bullying. There was the occasional, of course, but it was never really a big problem for me, thankfully and miraculously. Um, but yeah, I also worked as a tutor, so I've seen now terrible thing for sure.
Mhm. Nowadays, it's vastly magnified, mainly due, I think, to the advent of social media and just media in general. A lot of it has taken a turn for the worse in that regard because I don't think people are using the tool of social media properly. And I don't think that media in of
Exactly.
itself is a good thing. I think there's a vast difference between journalism and media. Media is about ratings, journalism is about truth. And there's a
Right.
lot, there's a lot of just media going on right now. Um, how does that affect what you do as a writer for exceptional needs today, or even in your fantasy novels? How does that kind of dictate, if any, in any way, how you go about writing?
Yeah. You just have to, um, I guess you just have to take all your reviews and things in stride. You just have to look at the positive, and you have to know that any kind of material you make, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like it.
Hmm.
And you just have to look at what the good people say, and I mean what the compliments are. And if someone gives you constructive criticism, that's perfectly fine, and you take it and learn from it. But if someone says something that's just you know hate and out of line or something, you just kind of have to try to brush it off. You have to kind of try to ignore those things, not take them personally.
I agree, but that can be difficult. You
It
know,
really is.
no, I'm lucky. I'm not big enough to have anybody who hates me. So I'm not that big. That's when I know I've kind of made it. When people start making like rumors about me and hate comes, that's when I know I'm doing something good. You know, that's
Yeah,
that's
I
that's my
haven't reached
theory.
that point myself.
And yeah, I'm not there yet, so I can still pretty much say what I
Yeah.
want to say. And the truth
Yeah.
is, I don't think anybody's creativity, their voice, there should be stifled. I don't believe in censorship. Um,
Mhm.
I don't, but I also don't believe that everybody is saying something worth saying. If that makes
Right.
you understand what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
um, I, you you also wrote a book about prayer. I believe it's just people on the forefront of prayer. So I'm
Yeah.
guessing you're a religious fellow.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I
Uh,
am.
you will find that I most certainly am not. But I often wonder, why is it the case that people who do have faith versus it's a matter of people who do have faith versus people who don't, or people who
Mhm.
why is there such a animosity in that subculture? Does that make you understand what I mean? Like, why is it
Yeah,
that, you
absolutely.
know we can't? Somebody can be a pagan, somebody can be a proud Christian, and they can't still get along. You know,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
that worries me because it says to me that you're not allowed to have opposing ideas and still be cordial. I don't understand
Mhm.
that, and I wonder if that's something that you think about or at all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's my faith is a personal thing. If somebody asks me about it, not that I ever force on people.
Hmm.
And anybody that knows me will tell you that they'll say I'm open-minded. I don't care what religion you believe in or not. If we get along, we get along, and that's all that matters to me. But um I have seen plenty of people that they just don't like people who believe differently, and that just, I don't, it blows my mind how they can be that way.
you can even, a lot of people would say politics is the newest religion. I don't think it's
Yeah.
necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily new, but it certainly is a hot button issue in that way. Like I'm old, like I say, I'll be 40. I remember a time when the three things you didn't talk about were who you worshipped, what you did in your bedroom, and what politics. Those were three things that were completely always off the table. You never
Yeah.
knew. I didn't know what your dad was, and you didn't know what mine was. We just knew they were two dudes drinking. That's what I knew.
Yeah.
That was all.
Absolutely.
Is that necessarily? Do you think that was necessarily a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I can see the argument against both in that
Mhm.
if you don't talk about it, it leads to some ignorance on the subject. But if you do talk about it, you risk alienating people.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Yeah,
know,
I mean, I generally, I generally try to avoid talking about it just because it does create division and stuff. But I guess if somebody, two people want to talk about it, it could be good, but generally I try to avoid it.
do you think people should try and talk about it more? Maybe that would kind of open some minds to different ideas and ideologies. Could that be helpful?
Yeah, I think as long as people go into it with the mindset that, you know, maybe the other person has a good point and not with the mind of I'm right and they're wrong.
Hmm.
Um, that's the main thing, I guess.
How do we get to that? Because it seems that people aren't really they're not really as open minded to the idea that we can agree to disagree on things and still maintain some level of cordiality, friendship. Even like I don't know.
Right.
I don't get it. And then you everybody will talk about all these different things, but nobody's actually trying to find common ground. And I don't
Yeah, that's true.
and the reason why I thought it would be cool to have you on, because clearly we have differing ideas and opinions on things, and that's something that I want to try and reach out to more, is people who don't think like I do or do have pushback or ideas different from mine, especially when it comes to things like religion and mental health and things of that nature, because I think a lot of us are ignorant to what other people go through or experience. And
Mhm.
I think it's more beneficial when we actually communicate these differences. And I think that this could be a good way to kind of broach the subject with somebody who again, I can't lie to you, I don't read much fantasy, but Barren
Mhm.
World seems interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like I like the way,
Uh-huh.
like I like the structure of that. It's very, very interesting. How did that come about for you?
The Barren World story I've been thinking about it since I was about 10 years old. I used to have little toys that I played with, and I would kind of party, and um, I just decided one day to go ahead and write it when I felt like I was ready. And let's see, I've done part one and two, and I'm working on part three now. I hope
Okay.
to have that finished by the end of the year, maybe out by the first of the year, hopefully.
Okay.
But I'm excited about getting that trilogy done because I've been thinking about it for a long time.
You know what? I've been writing a certain novel with a few friends of mine now, creating an entire universe since we were 15.
Mhm.
Trying to, so I understand having
Yeah,
that creative baby in there, but trying to piece it together to where it finally comes out in a way that makes sense to you and is good for you, is it's difficult. It's very difficult.
exactly.
It's very difficult. Um, Aside from the fantasy writing, aside from the Barren World, what are some other, like what was your reading list growing up? Like what are some of your favorite novels and things to read?
Yeah, I enjoy things like, let's see, all the stuff by C.S. Lewis, the whole Narnia series. What was it? Phantom Toll Booth. I read a lot of Star Wars stuff too. Always enjoyed reading sci-fi. I've never written a lot of sci-fi, but I always enjoy reading it. Um, and Tolkien, like The Hobbit and things like that.
The Hobbit for me was actually required reading in school. I remember that.
Or
And
was it?
yeah. And you know what? I did not like The Hobbit. Not as much as I like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Fellowship, the Two Towers, the Return of the King. But the way Tolkien wrote, you can't tell me that man didn't just detail everything. Like he went into the
Oh
colors
yes,
of
we
the
sure did.
rock. I think he went over like a page and a half about the colors of some rocks. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I get it. They're brown. They're rocks. I get you. Great job.
Right.
I myself, I was a Fear Street guy. I loved a lot of like teen horror and the Goosebumps, R.L. Stein, a lot of that. A lot of Kuntz and uh, David Baldacci, things of that nature. Yeah, that dog went out.
Sorry, I had to shut the door. My dog was barking a little bit.
Oh, no worries, man. Listen, but one thing I've discovered about doing this show is that people have lives, and that's something that
Yeah.
I appreciate. Especially people. I ain't gonna lie, I have a firm affinity for people who love animals, because I feel like if you're gonna treat animals with kindness and respect, then you can do the same to people. That's
Right.
not always 100% accurate, but I like to think it is.
Yeah.
I like to think that it is. If you what how can your writing impact others to do good? Because I see that you try and do, like you say, you try and put all types of characters in your novels, characters with anxiety, with depression, obsessive compulsive disorder. And that's interesting. You don't find many characters in fiction with these things. Usually, plot armor is so thick, nothing like that ever gets through it. What inspired you to incorporate those types of characters into your novels?
Yeah, I just, as a kid, I always felt that I was alone with that because not many kids really had what I struggled with at the time, back in the 90s or whatever. They didn't really, not many kids had that. And I want people to maybe see it and be like, okay, well, I've kind of felt that before, and things like that. And some of the characteristics, I guess they come out through the characters even when I don't intend it, just because it's my personality, everything. But I try to overall just put positive messages in there, positive messages about appreciating others, and appreciating family, and things like that.
Mhm. Is it hard to find that balance of, when you're, especially for writings, like say, so for example, writing villains, right? Uh,
hmm
do you ever find yourself trying to find a way to write a sympathetic villain?
Yeah. I actually enjoy writing villains the most. I think it's the most fun to write them because a lot of times they're the most complicated characters because you have to explain their motivation and explain, why they're doing the terrible things they're doing. Um, and there's a particular villain in the Barren World series that I'm still working on that. So I really enjoy writing his stuff. I'm gonna miss doing that when this series is over. But yeah, it's always fun to write villains. I love it.
Well, here's my question: why does it ever have to be over? Why don't you just keep the series going, focus on different characters, bring in new,
Well, yeah, that's true.
you know,
I
like,
I plan to do different like prequels or spin-offs and things like that.
Hmm. One of the things I'm doing, I'm writing a supernatural thriller, and one of the things I like to do is focus on a lot of the minor characters that don't seem like they're very significant to the story until they pop up in another, connecting the universe, so
Mhm.
to speak. I love that connectivity when you have this character from this novel and they show up in a different book. I've always loved that. I loved it in comic books. I love it in novels. I've always just appreciated how characters can leap beyond their own pages and
Mhm.
then come into somebody else's story, and how the author can weave them in. Have you ever thought about what, or I guess I want to ask, what is the next series that you want to do after you wrap up this trilogy?
Yeah, after this trilogy, I've got a few standalone novels that I want to do. They're but they're all connected in a way. Like it all takes place within a universe I made called the Seven Branches, and so a lot of times like you said, see a character pop up in another book, um, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I remember him from this and that and the other. But even if you don't see a character, most of the time you'll see the name of a world or a realm or something like that, or a kingdom, something like that. And but yeah, after that, I plan to do some standalone books, um, and maybe some prequels after that or something.
Okay. All right. And obviously you're going to continue to speak out about mental health and all of that.
Uh-huh.
How does one know? How did you know you had OCD and anxiety and things of that nature? Did you go to a doctor, or were you dying? Like, at the time, like you say, in the 90s, these things weren't really talked about at all.
Right.
They were, that it was very taboo. I remember, and especially coming from my community, I know they never talked about mental health. It was always
Mhm.
go to church. Like, that was the go-to for everything. If you were having depression, anxiety, being obsessive, or anything, the answer was always go to church. But that didn't always help.
Right.
How did you find out that you had these things going in?
Um, pretty much, my mom noticed me doing like facial tics and motor tics and things, and she took me to a specialist, and they diagnosed me then with that. And then not too long after that, I would go to my parents and say, I'm worried, I'm worried, and you know, so they eventually got concerned about that, and then they diagnosed me with anxiety, and I'd be like, I feel sad today, and so eventually they said, oh, okay, well, you got depression, and then when I was a teen, the OCD hit me just with having to, and I still have to do this, just clean things, rigorously, and have things set a certain way and follow a certain schedule. And you know, that was really when I think, I learned about OCD, and it was
Mhm.
I went to a therapist and they told me, these things that you're feeling are an actual physical illness, mental illness, but physical. And, there are lots of people that feel this,
Mhm.
even though you don't know about them. And, they taught me ways to deal with it. And I mean, I spent years in therapy working through it. And, even after all of that, I still struggle with it from time to time.
Mhm. And I I learned about OCD from the TV show Monk.
Oh,
That's
I
that
I like to watch that because some of the things he does reminds me so much of myself.
Right. Okay, so that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, how? I mean, I obviously, you're not the arbiter of everything OCD in this world, but I wonder how much of that he presented on that show, because it was a lot of it seemed very far fetched to somebody who
Uh-huh.
is unversed in it. How much of that did they really get accurate? From your experience?
I think they got a lot of it accurate. I can't say that I did everything or do everything that he did, but some of the stuff I would just see it and I'd be like, oh wow, I don't feel like a freak because I see somebody else that does this, and it's been a lot of shows like that. I don't know if have you ever seen Big Bang Theory?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Sheldon
Sheldon.
Cooper,
Sheldon
man.
has some, yeah, he has some OCD things that I really can appreciate too. So
Okay.
it's good to see people, mainstream like that and know that you're not the only one.
Well, you know what? And again, see, I thought when I'm looking at Sheldon Cooper, I've always looked at that as like an extreme case and wondered how much they were playing for laughs with it. But
Mhm.
you're saying that they portrayed his, in a very serious manner and kind of accurately. So,
Yeah, I'd say they did. His was probably maybe a mild to moderate case, I would say.
mm,
Because I've done more than that and I've seen, heard of a lot worse too.
is there are there times when somebody with obsessive compulsive disorder could be a danger to themselves or others?
Um, I guess it could result in that. It's never come up with me, but I think that's very possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder because I often wonder what we because like I said, we talk about mental illness all the time, especially a lot more lately with the horrific shootings and everything that's going on, the pandemic over the last 2 years. Uh, Everybody has a bit of fraying about the mental capacity right now. I think I would
Mhm.
think everybody's a little on edge, a little extra wired, a little, you know, how can we kind of destigmatize these problems that we're all facing and kind of
Mhm.
come out of the other end? Because I like how, like, for example, how did COVID and the lockdowns and everything affect you as far as when, having the anxiety, depression, the OCD and everything?
Yeah, it was really tough at first. I think that I was able to handle it just based on, everything that's led up to this moment. All the therapy I've had, the training that I've had to deal with, potential bad events and stuff. I think it really helped me because I honestly did better than I thought I would have. I don't, as a child, I probably would have handled it a lot worse.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that overall, things like that are bad, but they can strengthen you in a way. Just you think about, well, I handled this okay. If there is another world altering event, maybe I'll be able to handle that one too. So
Mhm. Yeah, I can't lie. In the beginning, I think and for maybe the first week and a half when nobody really knew what was going on, and I admit I was probably a little bit scared at first, and then over time it just got to the point where it was like, "Mhm, okay, I don't feel it that I don't feel so scared anymore." Like, oh, well, it's
mhm.
just one of those things where I noticed, but I do notice that people they're more anxious now.
Mhm.
People are a little bit more scared to be outside. You're still like, I can't lie, it's one of those things, and I always say to each his own. But when I see somebody who's driving in their own car by themselves with a mask on,
Yeah,
I'm like, why are we doing it? What are we
right. Yeah.
I live in, and I live in Pennsylvania now. I'm from New York, but I live in Pennsylvania now, and it's
Mhm.
obviously here in Pennsylvania is one of those places where it's like, they take their personal freedoms very seriously, and but
Uh-huh.
you do see people driving in a car by themselves, mask
With
on,
a mesh. Yeah, I've
and
never actually done
I don't, and
that.
didn't, I just didn't understand it. But I'm wondering,
Mhm.
is that anxiety? Is that just what is that that might make somebody that's getting people to do that? That's making people. do that. I don't know if
Mhm.
and it's interesting because I'm kind of just picking your brain about different things that have occurred to me, and I'm kind of using you as a sounding board for somebody who may have some of these afflictions to try and better understand what people are
Right.
going through. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Mhm.
As I say, this is just, this is one of those interesting conversations, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it, Mr. Holt. I am. I really am. It's
Yeah, me too, me too.
because I'm learning more than I thought I was going to, and that's a great thing. Um,
Good.
because I know I know I have suffered from anxiety. I don't much anymore. I don't really
Mhm.
have but that comes from when I was a kid and being bullied, and then just, living in neighborhoods, and that were kind of
Mhm.
violent and everything. Your surroundings are going to bring that out a lot. And I think a lot of people,
Right.
like I said, where I come from, a lot of people are never told about how to go get mental health, or to deal with their
Mhm.
mental health. But especially
Right.
nowadays, with all the gun debate, this that, the polarization of politics, the weaponization of um, people's rights come into
Mhm.
fruition. How do we come out of this in a better way? And this is going to be a running theme going forward on this here show. I want to ask people, how do they think we can get out of this? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to just, really try to understand each other more. I always look at it, if I have an argument or something, I try to see it from someone else's point of view. And a lot of times when you do that, you'll kind of see that, okay, well, maybe I was in the wrong. And a lot of times that really helps. The problem is people aren't willing to do that most of the time. They just want to see it from their own point of view. But I've found that if you look at it from your opponent's point of view, you kind of see yourself the way that they do.
Mhm.
Um, that I guess that could help. I mean, it would certainly help people to be more open-minded, I think.
Mm. I think taking the time to walk a bit in somebody else's shoes is definitely a good thing. I think it can
Yeah.
only benefit everybody if you take the time to remember that your experiences may not be other people's experiences.
Right.
Um, there's so many hot button issues just in this country, and then you've got a war going on between Russia and Ukraine, and I don't know how we pivot from this to something better,
Right.
and I can't lie, it has me a little worried. Now, naturally, I do have a bit of more faith in humanity, and in the power of love. I genuinely believe that. I think love is the most powerful force on planet Earth. But I think a
Mhm.
lot of people aren't taking the time to remember what love feels like.
Yeah, I agree.
You know.
Mhm.
Um, so what do we do, Jay? And we're whole. How do we fix this, man? It's me and you. It's me and you. We're gonna fix the problems together. We're gonna fix it right now.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure it out. Um, uh,
Yeah, yeah, I
no,
wish I knew.
honestly, if you and I could figure out all the problems in the world, we'd be doing a lot better.
Yeah,
We'd be a little better off, I think, than what we've got. Are you still in North Carolina?
I am, yeah.
Okay. I I don't know. It's interesting. I'm looking at the makeup of what we've got going on in this country. I'm looking at people angry
Mhm.
about every little thing. I'm looking at uh, people following ideas and ideology that may not necessarily be their own, but they're kind of just following. How do we get back to building actual leaders, and kind of get people to come to a better understanding, you know? I guess this is a very big question, but I guess ultimately I'm just trying to figure out, what do we do? You know, I am really trying to figure that out. I really want to know
Yeah.
how we fix this, because I don't know. But again, I am worried because I don't want to look on the news and see 12 more babies then been killed because somebody with a mental illness has gone on a rampage, you know.
Right.
You
Mhm.
know. Um so ultimately, I guess my ultimate question is, how do you convince people that may need help to get help if they don't want to get help?
Yeah, that's a good point. They really, I always say, you can't make somebody get help. You have to want help. And I've dealt with people like that too. I've told, I want you to get help, but you're not going to ever get better until you want to get help. And, you see that a lot. And then when that person decides they want to get help and they go get help, they get better. Um,
Hmm.
so I think, you know, you have to keep on trying to convince them to get help, but ultimately you can't make them. But I believe one thing that's important, especially with kids, is just if you're a parent or a teacher or a mentor or something, never ignore any signs of mental illness from a child. Because a lot of people, especially when I was growing up, they brushed it off a lot. Older people thought that you know kids didn't have mental problems, and it was a stigma, and it may still be. And you just have to think about, if you ignore something like that, you could be helping to create the next person who goes out and shoots somebody or something. So I think it's very important to remember, always take it seriously, even if it's just a little thing, take it seriously and give it some credit.
Hmm. That's interesting. And, you know, most, especially most people don't think children have brains, apparently. Like,
Mhm.
a lot of people don't think kids can have emotions and feelings,
Mhm.
and because a lot of people just think, you're a kid, shut up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go play. How do you recognize, what are some of the recognizable traits of a kid who may be going through something of anxiety or things like that? I notice my stepson sometimes gets, and he's gonna hate that I talk about this, but he gets so angry at times,
Mhm.
over such minor things. And sometimes I have to tell him, like, hey man, there's no need to get that angry about something so minuscule. You
Right.
know, uh,
Mhm.
like there are levels. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So somebody's really causing you physical harm, yeah, and anger, no problem. Somebody just,
Mhm.
pulling your funny bone, cracking jokes, you know what I mean? That's not such a thing. Not a big
Right.
deal. Where do you, especially nowadays where everybody is scared to make jokes or be a comedian, and
Mhm.
things of that nature. Do you think that, and there's gonna be a weird question, I guess, for you. I don't know if this is something you ever think about, but is cancel culture a good thing?
I don't think so. I mean, personally, if I, don't like something, I just don't really, associate with it or whatever. I've never, I don't believe in trying to defame someone just because of their, beliefs or something. So I
Mhm.
think that it can get out of hand for sure.
I agree. I think a lot of people are taking what people are saying, and they're using that and creating a narrative that dictates that having a thought opposite of what the mainstream narrative is, you're going to
Mhm.
be othered, you're going to be censored, you're going to be taken out to pasture, your career is over. And again, I guess
Right.
I'm thankful that I'm not big enough to have to worry about that right now. But in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, when I am, they're going to come back to this part of this episode.
Yeah.
They're gonna be
Yeah,
like,
we better watch what we say.
yeah, right. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not, listen, it's weird, but as a black man in America, I recognize that it's more incumbent upon me to look at the Constitution and our rights and the Bill of Rights and uphold those to their utmost. I think everybody should have the right to be able to say what you want. Now, I also think everybody should be able to accept the fact that some people are going to disagree with that and speak
Right.
about it. So is there a way that we can do this with civility and class? I guess you want to. I want to say, like I said, my dad's from Charlotte, North Carolina, so that Southern gentleman stuff is still kind of in me to a degree. But do you think it's possible that we can indeed sit at a table with people who oppose us and oppose our ideas or oppose our thoughts and still be able to, at the end of it, shake a hand, clink a glass or share a meal? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. Some people, I think we all just have to, accept that, people are going to disagree with us, and it's perfectly fine to disagree. Uh, the only problem is when you start saying, "Well, I disagree with him. I want him fired," or something like that. That's when you have a problem.
Hmm.
But I have plenty of friends that I know probably don't agree with me on certain things, and we usually just don't talk about them. And if we had to, we're accepting of each other's opinions. It doesn't really matter, because I mean, at the end of the day, what matters to me is the way somebody treats me and
Hmm.
others and stuff, and not their opinions. But I think that we used to do that more. I think people just need to get back to that, and because it's good to have a lot of different opinions at the table, because it can really, open up people's minds and create ideas. I think so. It's just about getting back to kind of accepting others' ideas, I think.
I'm gonna have to ask, what is one of these things that you and your friends disagree about? Go.
Uh, well, some of them just I have different friends of different religions or beliefs, faiths and stuff like that. And,
Hmm.
sometimes they change their beliefs or something. And so, we all just have a lot of us have different beliefs.
Hmm. I think it's okay to have. I think it's better to have ideas than beliefs. I mean, weirdly enough, have you ever seen the movie Dogma?
No, I
It's a
haven't.
it's a Kevin Smith movie, and it's a comedy, pure and plain. But it's interesting in the way that they poke fun, but
Mhm.
also kind of make you think about these things. So, like I said before, I'm not a very religious guy. I think that there's a vast difference between God and religion, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
But I also don't think that people should be disparaged for their beliefs.
Right.
Um, at in any way, unless your beliefs can cause harm or are causing harm to people.
Mhm.
And I often wonder if that's kind of one of those things that's always going to separate us, or because like, for example, and I've often asked this question of people: if you woke up tomorrow and there was no religion, like it was wiped out across the board, like it never existed, I do you think that it would come back in some form of capacity?
Yeah, I think so. I
Hmm.
think it's pretty inevitable,
Hmm.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, but would it always be the same thing?
That I don't know. It may be different over periods of time. I would imagine it would have to be.
That's what I think. And I and I'm but it's interesting, I've asked that question to a lot of people, and more often than not, like I don't know if you remember that there was a show back in the days called Dinosaurs. It was like Jim Henson. They were like animatronic dinosaur people living life.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And I remember one episode they had created this thing called the Great Potato, and that was like their new religion. Everybody worshiped the Great Potato. It was a very strange time for TV. um, but I remember being a kid and looking at that and thinking to myself, that's very real. People would like if you took something away, people would always find a way to have faith in something.
Hmm. Yeah,
Whether
absolutely.
yeah, and I think ultimately that's a good thing. I think spreading love, showing people that you care, having a bit of compassion and decency and kindness, that
Mhm.
goes a long way towards helping people become a little bit nicer, a little bit kinder, a little bit more
Mhm.
cordial with each other. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Right,
you know, agreeing to disagree is not a bad
right, right. Of
thing.
course
You
not.
know, um, if you could tell my viewers one thing, so, something positive, what would you tell
I guess I would say be yourself. I've always, as someone who has a lot of mental health struggles, I always struggled with being myself, being ashamed to be who I was. And so, I just tell people just own who you are. And, if people like it, they like it. And if they don't, then it's really their loss.
them? That's good. That's really good. You're right. You're definitely right. Be yourself. Find love. If you need help,
Mhm.
get help. There's no
Sure.
shame in
Absolutely.
asking for help. There's no shame in feeling anxious. There's no shame in being depressed. There's no shame in worrying. There's no shame in being obsessive a little bit. You know,
Right.
there's no shame in these things, and I think that that's something I want to share with people. There's no shame in feeling like you're not sure what's next or what's going on, but don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be
Right.
afraid
It's
to.
always important to, get help before it gets out of hand. That's very important.
Mhm. Well, J. Edward Holt, man, author, mental health guru. That's what I'm calling you. You mental health guru now.
Yeah,
You went from expert to
I'll take
guru in less than an hour. You know what I'm saying? Look at you. You're doing
it.
good, man. Man, but listen, I appreciate you. Tell everybody how to get a hold of your work.
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit my website, jayedwardsholt.com. You can find pretty much all my books on that website, as well as all my social media outlets. You can find my email there. I like to hear from my readers too and everything. So if you send me an email, I'll try my best to reply to it. But yeah, come check out the website.
Yeah. jayedwardsholt.com. Don't worry, we'll put the link in the description here, the video. Because in all honesty and fairness, you do really good work, sir, and I appreciate you for joining me.
Thank you.
Um, you're a great guy to talk to, so please don't be a stranger. Come on back anytime, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, man. You know what? I just want to say, I'm a bit scatterbrained with my questioning and everything, and you handled yourself perfectly. So
Oh, well, thank you.
you did that. You did very well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You did very well. So I appreciate that, and appreciate you for joining me. For Jay Edwards Holt, I am of course your boy Frank Starfire. This has been the Just to Be Frank podcast. If you like what you hear, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, spread the word, spread love. End of the day, if you need it, get help. Don't be afraid. One love, abracadabra. Peace, y'all.